Who are some of the most polarizing figures in pro wrestling history? Vince McMahon? CM Punk? Hulk Hogan? Yes, they all belong in that conversation, but for many, and I mean many years now, longtime fans have considered Jim Cornette and Vince Russo to be the most polarizing individuals in the history of this industry. More importantly, the real-life hatred between the two was so massive that it's still talked about to this very day. For the new fans who don't know about who these two personalities are, just wait until you hear about them and what led to quite possibly the biggest rivalry between the two non-wrestlers in pro wrestling history. So today, let's take a deep dive into the long history between Jim Cornette and Vince Russo, right here on JR Slobberknocker. Let's get right into it. Jim Cornette arrived in WWE all the way back in 1993, and he is widely remembered as a manager and color commentator. Jim would soon find himself on the booking committee of the company. On the other hand, Russo was brought in as a freelance writer for the WWE magazine in 1992, and he was later brought into the creative team in 1996. It should be noted that during this time, WWE was in a tight spot as WCW was basically kicking its ass in the ratings. The creative of the company was in shambles, and Russo was tasked with creating storylines that would bring in viewers and help the company in beating WCW in the ratings. So how did Russo do as the head writer? Well, Russo was responsible for some of the most memorable feuds and storylines, such as the formation of the Corporation and Steve Austin's rivalry with Vince McMahon. However, Russo has also made some questionable booking decisions. He tried to emphasize non-wrestling segments over in-ring action as much as he could. So where does Cornette fit into this whole thing? Cornette is an old-school wrestling fan. He prefers simple and effective storylines. Russo, on the flip side of the coin, prefers more of that entertainment aspect of pro wrestling, which tells you a lot about the Attitude Era. The first time the fans ever heard of a dispute between the two was over an episode of Monday Night Raw. Apparently, Russo booked 7 of the 8 matches on the show to end in disqualification. Cornette was baffled by the decision to the point where he confronted both McMahon and Russo. Speaking on his Jim Cornette Experience podcast, Jim revealed Russo's reaction to the complaint. So I find Russo in the hallway. I said, "Vince, you just made another one a DQ? Now we've got 7 DQs out of 8 matches on this program. It wasn't even who was in it, it was just the idea of that's ridiculous. It's just garbage lazy booking." Russo looked at me when I said, "We've got 7 out of 8 DQs now, do we need to do this?" He said, "DQ, schmeq, nobody cares," and turned around like he was going to walk off from me. Things didn't improve as Cornette ended up yelling at Russo in the hallway. Russo was left with no choice but to complain to McMahon about Cornette's behavior. Cornette would go on to argue with Russo over the course of many episodes, and Cornette was removed from the booking committee as a result. This was the beginning of a long real-life hatred between the two individuals. Several years later, Russo left to work for WCW, and Cornette was named the head booker of WWE's lead developmental territory at the time, Ohio Valley Wrestling. The entire thing extends far beyond WWE, as both men met each other in TNA in the mid-2000s. Russo was brought in as a creative writer for the company in 2002, and he was with the promotion till late 2004. Dixie Carter brought him back to the company in 2006. Jim was also brought into the promotion that same year. To keep things simple for you all, let's just say that things didn't go smoothly that time either. Jim was released from the company in 2009. Many claim that Jim yelled at Russo during a meeting, which is what got him fired. Others believe that Jim simply didn't appreciate the direction TNA was headed. Little did anyone know that things were about to get ugly. Jim took things to a whole new level in an email he sent to TNA's head of talent relations at the time, Terry Taylor. Jim expressed how vehemently he hated Russo. "I hate Vince Russo. I despise Vince Russo. I want Vince Russo to die. If I could figure out a way to murder him without going to prison, I would consider it the greatest accomplishment of my life. I hate him for the money he's cost me. I hate him for what he's done to the business. I hate him for keeping TNA from being competitive to WWE. I hate him for the careers, even the lives he's ruined with his shitty booking and the irreparable damage he's done to every promotion he's been involved with. I intend to make it my life's work and mission to fuck with him and anything he ever has anything to do with in this wrestling business." TNA immediately notified a legal firm, and his comments in the email were viewed as terroristic threats. With each passing year, Jim's hatred for Russo grew stronger, and Jim even challenged Russo to a fight. Russo responded by filing a restraining order against Jim. To say that Jim was fazed by this would be a massive lie. The man went ahead and began selling autographed copies of the order. While Jim has made it clear why he hates Russo, Russo told Chris Van Vliet that the reason why Jim hates him is because WWE and TNA chose Russo over Jim. At the end of the day, WWE and TNA, I was chosen over Jim Cornette twice. Okay, now, if the shoe was on the other foot and Jim Cornette was chosen over me, I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to ask myself, why, Vince? Why did they go with Cornette and not you? I would have looked at myself, but in Jim Cornette's mind, that was my fault. Jim's hatred for Russo hasn't stopped by any means, and Jim has always taken severe shots at Russo whenever he has gotten the opportunity. Jim went as far as to say on an episode of Dark Side of the Ring that he wants to outlive Russo and wants to urinate on his grave. That's just on a whole different level. It's tough to take any sides here, and we're obviously not here to do that. Do I believe Jim has gone a bit too far with this whole thing? Yes. Do I think Cornette was jealous that WWE and TNA preferred Russo over him? That's debatable. At the end of the day, wrestling is subjective. Everyone is allowed to have their own opinions. Russo can be blamed for the way he booked WWE and WCW, but that doesn't mean anyone has the right to threaten his life. Cornette's conflict with Russo is something that will be talked about for decades to come. So there you have it, folks. What do you guys think about the whole thing? Are you on Jim Cornette's side, or are you on Vince Russo's side? Let us know in the comments below, and you might also want to check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Make sure to subscribe to JR Slobberknocker for more.